Hi, welcome to this third talk of the day. In this talk, Phil Waud details the Queen Victoria Jubilee issue, issued from 1887 up until I think the end of Queen Victoria's reign, when she passed away. Really in-depth, interesting talk coming up from Phil. So thank you so much for Phil for providing this for us. What strikes me as you look at these stamps is the intricacy of the designs and the many different values. It's such a far cry from the start of Queen Victoria's reign, or rather the start of the postage stamps that appeared during her reign. So it shows you just how much the design and the approach to postage stamps progressed and changed during that period. So over to Phil, really. He's going to explain everything about the stamps. So much lovely material for you to enjoy. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hello everyone, I'm Phil Waud, the Honorary Secretary at the GBPS. Welcome to my talk on Queen Victoria's Jubilees. Here you'll see my programme for today's talk. I'll start with something of the stamps development, and then I'll move on to all the 14 values. First, those that were printed in the large pane, and then those printed in the small pane of 20 stamps. In 1884, a stamp committee was established. They worked with De La Rue, the engravers and printers, and they designed a completely new series of stamps. Here at the top you'll see the new small head. This is the die proof from a trial in December 1884. Below that there are a couple of what they call dummy designs. Here you'll see the larger head, which was the traditional profile on the Victoria's issues, and also the letters in the corners, which were considered by the stamp committee but were firmly discarded forevermore from GB stamps. In 1885, the Inland Revenue authorised work to start on the new small head dies for the stamps. The result are two dies, 288 on the left with a solid ground and 289 on the right for a white ground. Now on the left, solid ground now would be printed in a block of colour and not the line background as before. But the biggest innovation, which I call number one here, is the knife edge to the profile, so that a white background could be printed by cutting away the material on the plate. Now, bicoloured stamps required separate head and duty plates. I call this innovation number two. And here we have the die proofs of examples of heads and duties, the tuppenny on the left. Altogether, in the series, there were 7 bicolour stamps. However, they were not all bicolour. Some were printed in a monocolour. This was to support the objective of making the individual values as dissimilar as they could. So there's an example of the threepenny monocolour. Here we have the full set of 1887 values. There are 10 in total. This is taken from the Stamp Committee book. A presentation set was issued to officials at the end of 1886. This included the penny lilac. You can see the penny lilac on the left. However, this was not a part of the work of the Stamp Committee. It already existed. So now here we have the existing mill sheet of the day, onto which would be printed 120 stamps. The paper was watermarked with 120 crowns. We had postage in the watermark around the panes, as shown here, together with some other graphics and details. Now the first value is the halfpenny vermilion. From the first printings, a block was taken and overprinted cancelled, as shown on the right. This would be the print standard, and this occurred for the full stamp series. Up on the top left we can see examples of halfpenny vermilions, which covered variations in their shade. This was not only due to ingredients. There were no official ink changes recorded. The halfpenny is the only value with control letters, as we can see there in the corner block. Now in 1900 the colour had to change to conform to UPU requirements. It was first issued in April 1900. However, the government chemists soon reported that the ink contained lead. This was contrary to the contract, so De La Rue set about changing it. They soon came up with a zinc-based ink. However, the government chemist identified this was also contrary to contract, as it was affected by water turning blue. So De La Rue had to change it a third time. This time the formulation was an organic ink, and printing commenced in the October of 1900. I can't tell the difference between these three inks visibly. However, under UV light, the non-organic inks fluoresce black. Typical of De La Rue were continuous improvements, and here we see the introduction of ladder blocks between the panes. This was introduced in the February of 1900. Soon after, green printing commenced. However, we can see from the interpanel piece without the blocks that printing had started. It had started in the January, and this was in the style of the vermilions with no interpane blocks. Now the penny halfpenny is the first of the bicolours, thus needing a separate head and duty die, separate plates. It was found that this leaf design was not robust. You can see there in the detail how parts of the leaf would break away. Now in 1888 new plates were required, bringing about what's known as second setting, because these two coloured lines in the margin around the pane was introduced. Now these registration sheets, a copy you can see here, courtesy of the Postal Museum, London, are all in the Postal Museum, all the values, and these images can be seen on the GBPS website. Later, a third setting was printed in 1889 when they went to the fourpence, equaling 480 set printing. And these can be differentiated by the dropping of the green horizontal line. Now the tuppenny was also a bicolour, and here we see a block with clear margins. These are known as setting 1 and exist for all the 1887 Jubilees. Now Warren William de la Rue had ideas to introduce a guard line around the panes. This was to protect both the duty and the head plate. To show his proposals to the Inland Revenue, he produced these two die proofs. Now, when new plates were required, this second setting is printed. It shows the two continuous marginal lines. Now, these on the tuppenny are very scarce. In fact, from the print records, less than 2% of all the tuppenny printing were performed with these lines, and now only 9 pieces are known to exist to show this. Very soon, it's recorded in the following month, July, the third setting with the broken marginal bars, like we can see on the right. This takes us to the twopence halfpenny. Now this was on coloured paper. I call this the fourth innovation because in order to maximise the difference between the values, there would be 3 values on different coloured paper. In the block we see a specimen type 9 overprint. That's the most common on the 1887 Jubilees. The twopence halfpenny paid the foreign letter rate, and in fact letters could be posted at foreign destinations from ships. Here's an example on the left, posted in Penang from ship mail. Now the threepenny is a monocolour, and in the middle there we can see again a cancelled overprint, print room standard, and on the left a specimen. However, this is a different type. This is known as type 12, Samuel type 12, and is the second most common amongst the 87 Jubilees. In the threepenny we get the first colour variety after the halfpenny green colour change. Now there's a reference which we can see at the bottom of the screen. There's a reference from the Inland Revenue that they had production difficulties in 1891 and some sheets escaped the strict quality control at De La Rue Printing Works. The yellow colour of the paper was produced using lead chromate. However, a dichromate would give it an orange shade. Now one needs to take great care with these because it's reported that the change from chromate to dichromate is not difficult to make using a simple chemistry set. So one must be cautious as these ask large sums. On the fivepenny, the foreign double rate, when new plates were required in 1888, they found that the original duty die was damaged and they produced a new one. There are small detail differences which are catalogued, which collectors can readily identify. The scarcer die 1 stamps. Now the sixpenny is the third on coloured paper. It was used to pay multiple rates. All the Jubilees, as well as postage stamps, were also used to pay revenue. There's an example from a contract at the top right. On the registered letter there, sixpence is used to pay a multiple registration fee for £25 compensation. On the sixpenny, there was a division marker in the margins. Every 4 stamps, this allowed easy issue of 4 by 10 equals 40 set blocks. These are known as pentagon or division markers. They were also used on the fivepenny and the shilling. Now the shilling green was used for multiple rates, revenue, and also for telegrams. Here we see the omission of a numeral to render it more dissimilar. This was a conclusion of the Stamp Committee. Also the halfpenny did not have a numeral. It was written out in text similar to this. Now on the left we see the clear margin of the setting 1. However, this was printed in this way for a very long period compared to the other Jubilee values. And the new plates in 1899 made use of the guard rule as shown there on that marginal piece. So in fact on the shilling it's the marginal rule that's by far the scarcest. Now, plate damage is recorded on all the Jubilee values except the sixpence, ninepence and a shilling. However, this example here of mine does have frame damage as shown in the blow-up. Very similar to some of the other Jubilees with frame damage which are recorded. I've also seen at least 3 other examples. Here's a nice block, possibly used for telegram usage. I'd like to show you here some departmental officials on the left. Now, this privilege was already started in 1882 on the earlier issues and continued through the Jubilees. This was for free postage by government departments. And on the right, we need to remember that all the Jubilees had a double fugitive ink, the lilac and the green. Sensitive as a security measure. Now, because the halfpenny changed to green in 1900, we had to change the shilling green. And so colour trials were authorised in 1899, and they used the twopenny plates to do different colour combinations. Some examples here. So the colour changed to carmine, and the double fugitive green was retained for the head. So the previous printings were all on 120 set, but for the fourpenny, De La Rue had a lot of difficulties in achieving a plate to print that 120 set. This was eventually resolved by creating a new pane of 20 4x5 stamps. This was because of the new fringe, which was a key requirement from the Stamp Committee. So here we have one of these 20 set panes on a fourpenny. However, this is a scarce pane, being in the 4th setting with these thin lines which were down the centre of the sheet between the left and right halves. This accounted for only 5% of all fourpenny printings. And this was introduced for the 1890 printings, but discontinued from 1893, and so a 5th setting was therefore brought into effect. Now, this was never used on any other Jubilee, and so its usefulness is brought into question. Now, the ninepenny is very similar to the fourpenny, with the fringe, printed fringe, bicoloured. And so all the technical problems were resolved on the fourpenny, and the printing followed a similar but simplified course. So it soon moved to the final setting, as shown on the right, which is the same style as the Fourpenny, with the two marginal lines and the corner break. Pennies were used for multiple rates, typically parcels. So at the top here is the earliest style of parcel post label, type 1, which was in effect at the beginning of the Jubilee period. And here we have ninepence paying for a £5 parcel at the penny halfpenny rate. And here we can see a ninepenny used on a government parcels label. The government had their own types of parcel post labels, and in fact the whole subject of parcel post labels is an area that attracts many collectors, as there are a number of different types as the parcel post labels developed, evolved. Now we have the tenpenny. This is a latecomer to the Jubilees, introduced in February 1890. It was introduced to pay 4 times the foreign letter rate, and is seen in a range of shades from scarlet through carmine to a deep carmine, which is the scarcer shade. Similarly, the Fourpence halfpenny was a latecomer in 1892 and was introduced to pay the parcel double rate. However, the parcel rates were reduced in 1897, which brought about its demise, and was last printed in 1897. Here we can see the usage on a later style of parcel post label. And again, being a late comer, all the printings are in the same marginal style. You can see on the left, in this case, with 2 marginal lines. So here we can see usages of most of the Jubilee stamps. Starting at the top left, we've got a halfpenny vermilion, which was the postcard rate. Got a halfpenny green on a printed paper. We've got the penny halfpenny paying the double inland rate for a letter. The twopenny registration on a late envelope with a King Edward embossed. On the right we can see twopence halfpenny being the foreign letter rate, and then the fivepence, which was the double foreign letter rate used in 1887. In the middle we can see a fourpenny green and brown, which was the long distance foreign rate to places such as South America. The fourpence halfpenny had an alternative use, which was the registered foreign rate, making fourpence halfpenny. And along the bottom row we can see the tenpenny, which was 4 times foreign letter rate, flanked by the Shilling carmine and ninepenny, both being used for multiple registration, which was their common purpose. And on the left we can see a Shilling green, in this case overprinted government parcels, and on a government GPO parcel post label. Now, first day usage is very scarce. fact, only the 5penny is known on the 1st of January. Here are examples that I've found in the first week of usage, 4th to the 7th of January. See, there were residual stocks of the old lilac and greens. Which appear to cause little usage in the first week of the new Jubilees. This brings us to the death of the Queen, the end of her reign in January 1901. However, the Jubilees were a great success. All but 3 of the values were retained for the King Edward issues. New heads were engraved, and the Jubilees continued to be printed. So here we have a summary of what we've seen today. These new stamps were designed as individuals to maximise the difference between them, so they could be readily differentiated. I've identified 5 innovations compared to the previous GB stamps. We had the new small head with the white background. We had bicolour stamps. We had guard lines authorised, which became known as Jubilee lines, were used for many years. Coloured papers. We have the perforation fringes. So we've seen all 14 values in the series. Hopefully I've shown you a new way of looking at these stamps. Thank you. I do recommend that you look at the GBPS website, where there is tremendous wealth of information. As listed here. Please take a look. Most of it is freely available. Membership brings a number of additional benefits, including access to the extensive library and GBPS consultants. Thank you.
Thanks to Phil for the presentation and for sharing his expertise. I'm sure you enjoyed it as much as I did. Just to mention, if you do want to add these or other classic GB stamps to your collection, don't miss the conference partners. So that's De Walders of Salisbury and also Andrew G. Larger as well. So do check out the details on the conference hub about these 2 traders, and why not have a look at their latest stock and add to your collection.